What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another Stay Hot film review. I am Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ashton. Today we are looking at Jihaad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama. We have not done our linebacker episode yet, but we figured this would be a good start, and we will probably do that on our Monday episode. But before we get into it, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing? Or do you want to just get into it?
Let's just get into it.
Let's just get into it. It doesn't matter how I'm doing. I'm just a vessel for the analysis, really. So,
Okay.
Jihaad Campbell, number 11 here, mugged up in the A gap. First thing you notice about him, I think, is just his kind of length and size and how long all of his limbs are. He's just very prototypical, I think, for like the modern linebacker, it feels like. So yeah, just kind of my instant thought on his body. It's pretty cool. And he's extremely slippery, as you can kind of see from this play. It's just kind of this man rushing scheme where the center is on him and the center is going to try to go track him down, and he just can duck out of the way and he can kind of balance off one foot and drive, and you see him just kind of disappear from out in front of this guy and then really plant off that foot, and he's like got one leg up in the air and he's like kind of teetering around, and then he just comes back down and he can accelerate and he can make the tackle on this guy. So as a big lineman, if you're going to go try to get him out in space, it just feels so annoying, and it feels like you'd be lucky to even get a hand on him sometimes because he just kind of darts out of your way and has the athleticism that even if he gives a little bit of ground in those moments, he makes his way back into the play for the tackle. He is, or go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah.
I was going to say
he's incredibly laterally quick. I feel like that's maybe his single strongest trait. I do think in terms of like him being a prototypical linebacker, I thought that he was a hair light sort of in his lower body. That's my one thing about this isn't to say that like his build or his like physical profile is bad, because it's really, really good, but it does make like put him sort of into a certain style, I would say.
Yeah.
Where he's able to do a good job working downhill in spite of being a little lighter because he's so quick. Like, this is the way that he wins. But sometimes when we say prototypical, we mean like this guy basically doesn't have a weakness. I wouldn't say that for Campbell, but it's not so bad that like it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe I say that, and I'm thinking more in coverage than going downhill, and with passing rates going up, and the quarterbacks you have to track down and defend. He feels pretty good for the modern era, but you're definitely right, and you can see it well from this image. Like, he's not like the Nick Bolton body type or the, we could go even higher on that scale and say like Ray Lewis or something like that, like kind of the old thumper. He's definitely skinnier with the long arms and legs and not a ton of mass in his like hips and butt and kind of lower body. But this is another play where he's just kind of olaying a lead blocker in space. This tight end comes around on this counter play, and 17 squeezes through the gap. He's going to try to square up Campbell and try to get him, and then Campbell just arm overs him, and he just can't make good contact with him, really, and then Campbell falls back into the lane to make the tackle, and this is just how he approaches it. A lot of his blocks is he likes to kind of wait until the blocker really tries to commit to him and then just kind of bounces right off of him and then gets back in the play. He doesn't really like to keep guys at length, which is a bit of a problem. It's not so much on this play, but just kind of a good example of how he approaches blocks and, how he wants to play. And here it kind of works out for him. And then this last play is probably my favorite play of his. Staying really square to the line of scrimmage here, coming downhill, just pressing this an A gap that he's initially in between the center and the guard. And then it's a gap scheme play, so that center leaves, which means, what was 2 gaps now just is 1. So the defensive tackle can kind of cover all that space. He's got to follow the moving gap, and he does that with this square shuffle laterally along the line of scrimmage, and the tackle who is trying to help out on the 3 technique, or the 1 technique that is, and then climb up, just can't quite get to him because he's very decisive with his movements here, and his surface area is kind of reduced because he's staying square. And the end on the line of scrimmage here, he's boxing this in by taking on the first puller, and then the other linebacker, the Mike, is going to box this in further by taking on the lead blocker, and then there's Campbell preventing this running back from putting his foot in the ground and really getting upfield. And so the running back tries to bounce it outside, and then Campbell continues to just move laterally and track him down in the flat. And this is definitely my favorite play from this Michigan game. The technique, the lateral quickness, and the range to make a tackle all on display here. This is really, really nice whip or will linebacker play.
And honestly, what I think makes him really good here, yeah, it's quick laterally, and you can tell, like, there's a lot of athletic linebackers, but he pretty quickly stands out. But a large part of that as well is his processing speed and his ability to react to things quickly and have good feel. I think that all comes together to allow him to make really, rangy plays like this.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a great combination of reaction and anticipation. Just a smart football player. That was kind of the first thing that stuck out to me, is his gap selection seems to always be right.
Yeah, he's looking at the running back here, and he just does such a good job mirroring everything the running back is doing. It's the running back's got to be looking at it, feeling like he's seeing himself here, right? Every single thing that he does, the linebacker Campbell is able to match. So those are the good plays that I liked, but there are actually more bad plays in this Michigan game. I'm going to be honest, and all of them are kind of the same thing, where it just feels like he's always trying to maneuver around blockers instead of trying to go through them. Like, watch the 2 linebackers here, Campbell and then number 15. They're both kind of facing the same thing. 15 has got to deal with this lineman coming up at him, and then Campbell's got to worry about this tight end coming up at him. And watch how 15 takes on the lineman, right? Like, he stabs him in the chest. He's real low, and he's able to kind of dent him in and then fall off. And then watch how Campbell does it to the tight end. It's all about just picking one side and swimming over him. And he's not stabbing and keeping him kind of at bay and denting the line in. It's not really a problem here, but what can happen is, the running back can make the lineman right the same way linebackers can make their defensive linemen right. And if there's a clear read for the running back and the linebacker just kind of chooses one side purely, the running back can just kind of go in the opposite direction and break off a big run. And the way 15 is playing that's just a harder read for the running back, because he's just kind of pushing that lineman back, and he might be able to kind of rock back and forth like a defensive lineman and make a play on both sides of the ball. So nothing really that Campbell does that negatively impacts the play there, just some behavior things to check out. Here's kind of the same thing where you see this kind of utility tight end or fullback type kind of come at him, and he doesn't really make any effort to really engage with him. He tries to just kind of outrun him, and then 14's really able to just kind of wash him down from there and stay connected for a long time. And here's a situation where the running back is able to choose a side kind of, and
side of Campbell gets totally washed out of the play here, and the running back doesn't even have to do anything special for Campbell to just
it's not even that the running back is choosing a side. It's that the side has just become extremely obvious. And if Campbell just played with a little bit more physicality, and again, you can see 15 kind of actually trying to pop somebody here, although he can't quite get to the other side of him. Like, I just like that more. Good ass tackle from the safety, by the way.
Yeah,
look at that. Bang.
I think with Campbell, a lot of the issue comes down to, he's got the arm length and the upper body strength, in my opinion, to keep someone like you said, at length and disengage. But I don't think he has the anchor to stop himself from getting pushed around a lot of the time to make that work. That's what I noticed while I was watching him. And because of that, I think he resorts to some of this stuff, which isn't always bad, but some of the time it can be.
And then this is the last play I'll show. There's a lot of running in this game. I don't really have any coverage reps, so just for the sake of this not becoming redundant, this will be the last play that I show. But again, same deal. You can compare how 15 and 11 handle these two blocks. This time it's 15 who gets the tight end, and it's Campbell who gets the center here. And then 15 is going to try to pop somebody and two gap pretty much at the second level. And then Campbell is like, very much, I'm going to turn my shoulders and I'm going to try to run around this guy. And I just don't like it. Like, if this run successfully cut back, he would have been in trouble. But there's some blown assignment up front, so the running back doesn't actually get anywhere. But again, just that constant idea of like, I'm going to be able to get around this guy and then use my athleticism to work my way back, even if I'm out of position to begin the play. Like, he is crazy athletic and it can work for him, and he was super productive at Bama, but at the NFL, like, I don't know if that's the kind of run defense that I'm quite looking for. But he is super athletic and he is super hard to get a good connection with if you were trying to block him as a lineman.
Okay.
Nice.
Well, if you want to see some coverage, I've got that here for you. I do. I think his ability to move and read and react to the quarterback is incredibly impressive. He's got a lot of range and the ability to use it, I guess. Here, it's like a cover 3 where they only rush 3. I think Beck here wants to try to get it to the seam, but Campbell shuts that off, and he's able to make a play on it. I do think this is a little late. Like, it's not a bad idea if you throw it now, but when he's late, it just gives him too much time, and, I mean, it's also probably a little low. For a lot of this game, they weren't targeting him, I mean, pretty much at all in terms of in coverage. I think from here on out, they stayed far away from him. And I think that's the type of coverage linebacker he's going to be at the next level. Somebody who really changes the math on where you want to be throwing.
Yeah, I think there's clearly very little wasted movement on that rep too. Just like, I mean, he got back, he rotated his hips with the quarterback's eyes, and then broke on the ball as soon as it was out.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I like about him. I have another play in here. And here in man, it's going to be an outbreaker. The way that he's able to break off of one step when he reacts to this allows him to not only keep up with him, but to undercut this and come very close to making another play on the ball.
Yeah, it looks like he just reacts so instantaneously with the break of the receiver, like almost like he knew exactly what was coming and was able to perfectly anticipate it. I mean, bang.
Right.
He ran that route he looked like a receiver running that route.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's what makes him such a coverage weapon here, is the length and the ability to break off of one foot and read things out quickly means that in either man or zone, he's going to be a humongous problem. And while I definitely think there's some limitations in terms of like what his size means for him playing the run, it just what he's able to do in coverage is going to be a big deal for a lot of teams. Here's a little bit more of what I'm talking about, though. He gets sealed off pretty easily, and I think he keeps like this is the type of rep where, you know, he's trying to like just set the edge and pick a direction and make a play, but he gets blown off the ball too much that even when he's able to kind of disengage, he's still a little too far behind to actually make the play.
Yeah, and that's a tight end too. That's like, you see the power the tight end has when he just engages. Like, there's actually real pop there in a way that should be vice versa. Like
Exactly.
that lift and that extension, Campbell should be doing that to the other guy.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's like, when you're trying to set the edge here, it's like you can't just like pick a direction. That's like not a makeable play, because if the running back's coming your way, like he's just going to pick whichever way you don't go. It's a guarantee that he's going to do that. Whereas maybe some other times when you're going through traffic, it's not so likely, or things are more muddled. Here, your assignment is specifically not to do that. So when he doesn't have the option, it just doesn't end well for him.
I think a lot of times he's really going for that kind of push-pull and just try and like shed a defender or shed a blocker. But the problem is his pad level is so high that he's never really able to actually get engaged in the blocker in the first place. I keep saying defender. He's never really able to get his hands inside because he's just standing up and kind of reaching around. That's something that when I showed the Tennessee game, it happened a little bit there as well.
Right. And then I just had one more play that I thought was incredibly impressive, showing off his range. It's not necessarily some sort of like great stop or anything, but this is something that you'll see posted on Twitter a whole bunch. I remember this. So this is another play where, he gets kind of blown up by an offensive lineman. It's just a screen to the outside, but he is able to make a pretty insane chase down and hawk this guy down. And I think his range is fantastic. And I thought this was a really good example of that.
He ran a 4.54 at the combine.
And man, I think his play speed is faster than that, I'd
4.54 is crazy. For 6'3", 235, that's crazy fast. And
the way
he might be faster than that, but yeah.
He almost like gains speed while he's stumbling there, which is kind of wild. Like he's definitely not handling the contact super well, and then has to flip his hips kind of at the same time and accelerate. And the way he's able to do that, he's just such a naturally great athlete. Like everything is possible for him on the football field.
Yeah. So I would say I was a pretty decent fan of him. I think the coverage stuff he has the potential to be like one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL. That's no exaggeration. He clearly has the tools to do it, and it seems like he already has the feel to do it. The question is, can you handle, what he brings in the run game, which might be a little bit limited.
Yeah, I would want him playing as much like man as possible. I feel like let him follow guys around.
And actually I had one more. Yeah, I think this is it. Okay, so Campbell's it's going to be a pretty serious zero blitz. And Campbell really isn't going to do much on this play. But watch Carson Beck get clobbered. That's crazy. Run that back one more time. I thought it was funny. He had to throw that sooner for it.
Damn.
He didn't juke anybody.
I want to see it from this angle.
No, that's crazy.
Jesus.
So let's. He just said, "Watch Carson Beck get clobbered." All right, so the game I was taking a look at was the Tennessee game. We're starting at 3 minutes and 18 seconds in, and we're gonna go back to kind of what I think I was talking about a little bit during Theo's tape. Is his gap selection. I think is always pretty solid here. This is just going to be pure zone to the left side. And we're going to get doubles on this defender out here. I think that's number 22 on the edge. And this nose tackle with 53 is going to disengage and try and get up to Campbell. And then 63 is going to disengage and try and get up to the Mike. And as this kind of plays out, you see 63 is able to disengage and get up here. And this A gap is opening up right away. But 63 disengaging to try and get up to Campbell is not working because Campbell recognizes how wide this gap is and immediately shoots it. And that's going to force 70, or I think it's 70, this guard now to pull off and try and help out there, which now frees up number 22 to then make this tackle on the bouncing running back. So even though Campbell isn't the one to actually make this play necessarily, he is the one to make it because he forced the zone blocking to kind of dissolve in a sense there. And that, I think that helps a lot when you're so aggressive in attacking, the anticipation and the reaction to kind of what's going on around him, I think is really strong. So that's kind of, I think, where he does make a positive as a run defender, where like, because he reacts and attacks so quickly, even though he's not like the best disengager of blocks, he's still able to make high impact plays in that area.
Yeah, there's a lot of value in just being kind of downhill because, it does force those double teams to peel off. Like, the linemen are instructed, like, hey, if the linebacker steps down at all, or if he chooses a side on your combo, it's time for you to peel off. So being just decisive, even if you're not taking on the block at the highest level, this plays a good example of how that helps out the defensive tackles.
Yeah, because most of the time it's just like, these defensive tackles are like, he's got to take on this combo, he's taking on a combo. And a lot of times you would see this Mike flow to the A gap, and then the outside backer flow to the outside and kind of set the edge there. Mm-hmm. And that's where that running back would then be able to just cut through that A gap. And I mean, that would probably be a 20 or 30 yard run. And this is kind of going to be another example of attacking an opening and then just blowing it up. If I'm not mistaken here, this is kind of boot action by the quarterback here, and he's kind of flaring out into coverage. But he's just going to see this opening and take a shot at the quarterback. And because of that, he's able to jump up and tip this pass, force the incompletion. I do question whether or not that was like good process, but the result worked because he made the play. And I think it was the aggressiveness and like he didn't hesitate in his decision that made it work out in that way. But that's the one thing where I'm like, it worked, but there was a guy that was open, and that's why the quarterback, ended up pulling, is there was this leaking tight end here. And if he's able to get that ball over, maybe that does end up being a completion.
Yeah, I mean, he's got crazy, crazy long arms. He's always in good shape to make plays like that.
Yeah, so the range makes up for it, for sure. Okay, this is, I think, a rare example of him like properly disengaging a block where he bench presses a blocker and really does shed. Now, it is a wing right here, so it's not like the biggest body, but kind of a rare where he gets, decent pad level, bench presses a guy, sheds him, and makes the tackle here. Don't see a lot of that from him, but I thought that was a really nice play to show that he's at least capable of it.
Yeah.
To where, if he gets to the right organization, maybe there's some coaching that goes on. It's like, hey, man, if you can get your pad level lower consistently, like, you could blow up so many plays like this.
He's aggressive enough. Like, if he could take that aggression to like guys who are trying to block him, I think it's totally possible, instead of just like when he's sort of more in space trying to make a play.
Yeah. I do think he definitely struggles more when there's more space around him to kind of disengage from those blocks. But I think in these like kind of close quarter situations, he's able to be a little bit better at it, which I guess makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So this will be kind of the opposite situation where he does struggle to shed this block. Got a tight end coming in motion here. And I don't even think that's particularly great contact from the tight end. He just kind of puts his shoulder into him, and Campbell isn't really able to do anything. Like, his hands are just kind of flailing around the body. There isn't a lot of control. And that's the one thing where I'm concerned about, is like high pad level, and what is he doing with his hands to really try and move these defenders off of him. I thought the last play showed that he's capable of it, but this play, he gets awkward hand placement on a block that it's really just shoulder checking. And I feel like a guy who's really strong at shedding a block would discard this easily and make the tackle. It's not a huge gain, but it's definitely something where Campbell could have made that a much bigger play for the defense. Okay. So this actually ends up like, again, another play where it's like kind of okay. But I did chalk this play up to a negative. So the situation is 3rd and 20. Okay. So like a 5-yard play is fine to give up here. It's going to be, I think they do end up dropping into cover 3 here. Yeah. So it's cover 3. He's in zone. Quarterback is under pressure, stepping up into the pocket. The line of scrimmage is like the 26.5. And you can see quarterback is not even at the 25 yet. Campbell's already breaking on this. Now, the quarterback does end up running, and Campbell ends up being the first one to the ball and makes the tackle. But him leaving his zone when the quarterback was not at the line of scrimmage yet leaves a receiver wide open. A smarter quarterback would have hit this throw. On 3rd and 20, I think this is a bad play.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I mean, it's his closing speed is so good, so there are positives on this play
like
for him. But
it looks cool, but the situation is just.
I was watching Amani Hooker for my underrated players series, and there was one play that he had where Jaden Daniels broke the pocket and started scrambling. And the first thing Hooker did is he immediately looked like, who's he going to be throwing to? Like Zach Ertz, there's a crosser coming across the field. Like Zach Ertz is settled down in the middle. Like, I've got some guys in front of me who can deal with Daniels. Like, I'm going to stay back and really make sure that he doesn't throw across his body to this crosser that's like going to the same side of the field that he's running to. And he ended up getting a pick because Daniels did throw it on the move. He couldn't escape. He threw it a little bit high. It bounced off Ertz's hands, and Hooker was able to pick it off. And it's like, there's something to be said just being in the right place. Like, he didn't do anything crazy on this play. Like, he didn't take the ball away per se, but he didn't bite on the scramble. He stayed home, and he got an interception because of it. And there definitely are, there's people to take care of the quarterback to some extent in front of him. I get like going upfield, it's a little bit tough, but yeah, I do think like he could have stayed back there for a beat longer. But there's also, it's not all negative because he did close the space, and maybe he knows the quarterback. Like,
well, that's what I was going to say. I don't disagree with you, Blaiden. I think you're right. I think this is a good call too. Yeah. But I do think that Nico is maybe a little prone to like tucking it a ton and running a ton. I watched only a couple of games of him, so maybe I'm wrong. And he makes plays where he's moving towards the line of scrimmage and then makes a throw more than I think. But he definitely does seem like, especially for like a true freshman, you know, like this is a younger guy. I don't know what number game this was for him, but it couldn't have been all that high probably. I will say the other thing we haven't brought up a lot with Campbell that I think is worth mentioning, he's a very good tackler. He's incredibly good tackler.
Yeah.
And this seemed like a good example of it. I mean, this is as open field as it gets with someone who's pretty shifty, and it's not even a challenge for him. I don't know what his missed tackle rate is.
That's a great tackle.
Or what, but like
tackle. Like, there's definitely positives to take away from this play, but I thought from a decision-making perspective, he could have stayed home.
He should have gotten burned there. Like, a good quarterback would have burned that decision, but maybe he knew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, I haven't.
Yeah, like a Bryce Young really like makes them pay for that.
Jordan Love would have hurdled that tackle.
Matt Corral would have made him pay. Yeah. But you see, notice how I can't say like my team's quarterback.
That's true. No more DTR. Starters to John Watson.
It's Kenny Pickett.
That's not even your league's quarterback.
Jalen Hurts would have made him pay. No, it's. I didn't see Tennessee's quarterback ever try and scramble out and throw across his body. But I did see him occasionally, like he would roll out and then he would just like launch it like 50 yards deep. But like you said, Matt, a true freshman probably isn't making those plays, but a smarter quarterback, more experienced, probably would have made that throw.
I do think that kind of thing can translate to some of the eye candy stuff, like in the Michigan game. There was nothing egregious enough that I clipped it, but I don't think he kind of has that. Like, you can kind of get him if you fake show a little bit of color in one direction and make him go somewhere else. Now, he's so athletic that like it doesn't even really end up mattering even. But yeah, he could stand to have, I think, better eyes.
He could. He's a younger prospect. I think that him being a little bit more on the aggressive side is not a bad thing, actually, for an athlete like that. Now, there's a level of wanting to reel it back, but there's some linebackers that you watch where it's like they'll be good athletes, but they're just like guessing. They're clearly just like guessing all the time.
Yep.
Campbell isn't necessarily perfect, but he's certainly far, far from that.
Yeah, and I mean, he had 117 tackles, 54 solo, 12 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, and a pick, 2 forced fumbles, 2 passes defensed, a fumble recovered. So whatever aggressiveness that he was displaying, like it was paying off for him, like stuffing the stat sheet last year.
This next play is, I think, a textbook example of his high pad level. They're going to do some play action here. He's going to, pause just for a second to make sure runner pass. And then he's going to engage this running back who is like half his size, and he gets completely shut down. And I'm like, this should be an absolute mauling. He should obliterate this guy.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no aggression trying to get through him. There's no like drive. He lets him establish the contact rather than the other way around. When, especially like if you can get low, you're gonna have like length on this guy. I mean, you should be able to like blow this thing up, really. But it's just not quite his game to do that type of thing.
Yeah, like I don't even need him to like come screaming off the edge and like put a shoulder in and just like absolutely clean his clock. I'm not asking for that, but just like get low. use your size. Like you have the height, the mass. Use your length, get low, bench press this guy, and all like that's all he would need to do here, and he would have his running back in the quarterback's lap. Like it would take literally like one motion of just like squat down a little bit, and it would completely change the outcome of this play. That to me is like the most egregious example, but it happens like more frequently than you would like. Just
yeah, kill that guy.
Good catch though by the receiver there, low ball. Okay, this will be the last play I show. I'll end it on a positive note here. I do think this is another decent example. It shows that he's capable of it. He's going to engage a block, create separation, use the arm extension, leave his outside arm free, and then able to fly down and make this tackle. Yeah, he's lined up right here. He's the most outside guy. Creates extension, flies downhill, makes the tackle. I'll show the other angle. But it's like, again, we can see that he's capable of making these plays. He's got the reaction ability. It's just, I think it could come together a little bit better, but I think this is as great as it gets. And again, Matt, like you said, his tackling.
It's an issue, dude. I mean, you can see it where it's like someone who can tackle like this with this type of range. That can be an issue.
Yeah.
He's very intriguing. He's very intriguing overall. My concern early with him would just be, the block take on. I mean, there's a reason why linebackers are linebackers and safeties are safeties is kind of where my head goes, where it's like he needs to have the run defense as well as the pass, but like he's way better at tackling than the average safety, and he's way bigger, and he's got these reps where you see the potential with the long arms and the take on. It just, he needs more development in that way to be positive in both facets. But like if he figures that out, like he could be like all pro, right? Like he's that athletic. So he's worth a shot.
This is an all pro level play right here.
Yeah. And the play Matt showed where he mirrors that guy in like man match or whatever that was, like that's just not a lot of linebackers.
I will say 6'3", 235. I mean, how many linebackers are in this class who are that tall and light? Probably, I mean, I guess there's actually, of course, a bunch of linebackers who are all 235 this year, but most of them aren't that tall. Like he's definitely bordering on tweener territory at 235, although he's listed higher at Alabama, and you never know. It's like, are these guys like dropping weights? They can run a fast 40 time, so their RAS score can go up because, it overvalues being light and whatever.
The UCLA guy, Carson Schwessinger, is 6'2", 225. So that's a little small. But yeah, Matt, I think overall, I think you're right on that.
Yeah, get him in a scheme with like one gapping penetration, like man coverage. I feel like kind of like the Browns, but
I was about to say, it sounds like he would be a great Browns linebacker.
Yeah, that might be honestly too much pass rushing for him, but yeah, like he's not gonna make up if you have bad defensive tackles, but like if your defensive tackles are like good, like I'd draft him, like. Yeah. And you could probably kind of make up for some of his weaknesses if you had that and get all the strengths. So yeah, late first, early second, probably kind of where I fall on him.
I think I'd take him in the first.
Pretty good. Yeah.
I would take him in the first.
Solid first.
It is a lot of yapping. I will show this is the pass rush rep that I was talking about. I did end up finding it. He's lined up off ball, comes off the edge here, bends the arc. Pretty good.
See, like
quarterback ends up escaping, but it's a good rep from him.
Top 10 linebacker who was selected not all that long ago? Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah.
He was the most tweener of all time.
Yeah, he was like actually a safety at Clemson and a nickel and a defensive line. Like he was.
Yeah.
Outside of that,
he like invented the term tweener.
And like Micah was an off-ball linebacker out of Penn State, and his first year in Dallas.
Really,
That's true.
Yeah, he was not an edge even as much as Jalen Walker was, I think.
Reddick was kind of a tweener guy, right?
Yeah, all these tweeners go. Where's the real? I mean, it's him, I guess. I mean, Jack Campbell is the real.
Jack Campbell was. I mean, he went 18.
Yeah.
I'm going back. When's the last time that like an honest to God linebacker went in the top 10 or like went high? It's Smith. And then I'm almost wondering if it's Kuechly before that.
Yeah, that's the name that comes to mind.
How old is Fred Warner?
He went third round.
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah, he went third round.
I totally forgot.
And Greenlaw went fifth.
Anthony Barr went.
Yeah, I knew Greenlaw was
9. I didn't realize he went that high. This is getting back there now, but.
He was also kind of a tweener, though. I have no idea. Campbell's up there, though, as far as real off-ball linebackers. Yeah, Campbell's a good shout. He was pure off-ball, and I would consider Campbell to be pretty pure off-ball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he's got some pass rushing juice in him. So for the sake of we did show the play, it now exists in the Stay Hot repertoire of film analysis. But. Hey, those are our thoughts on Jihaad Campbell out of Alabama. I think we're all pretty decently high on him, but I feel like as a whole, we actually might be lower on him than like consensus. I see him mock top 10 a decent amount.
The thing is that like once you get past like pick 8, not like the 10th pick is anybody's game. There's like 15 guys who could go there.
I think we're pretty in line with consensus on him. I feel like a lot of the stuff I see is pretty much all the things that we've said. Like, yeah, he doesn't take on blocks very well, but he's crazy athletic and like kind of late first-ish, early second-ish type of grade. I think if you went to Zerloin's Report or Bleacher Report or really anybody, I think they'd all kind of have the same conclusion on Campbell. I think he's pretty straightforward. I don't think he's very controversial, except for maybe like, well, you just don't get linebackers who come through with any kind of size or development like this. So maybe you should take him at 8 if you're the Panthers. I feel like that might be where things start to get controversial is like, well, the
Panthers are going to be the first controversial pick of the draft. You can see how it's lining up that way. Like that's how it's going down unless they get like Tet or something.
I think even Tet would be very controversial at 8, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, go through, look at it. If it's not Mason Graham falling to us, it's going to be really blank at 8. I would have traded down.
I would have traded down.
Yeah, Mason Graham, everyone would be on board with. I feel like Jalen Walker is like kind of pretty high, like uncontroversially pretty high, but we're in the weeds now. This is not a podcast episode.
This is not a podcast episode. If you want to tune into the podcast episode, of course, we will be talking about another draft prospect or another draft position of prospects. But thank you all so much for tuning in. And as always, we will catch you on the Flip and Flop.